As soon as I hit the go live button, Ed's phone is ringing. What's going on there? G'day, mate.
My doctor calling me saying, bad news. No, just kidding.
What could possibly be bad news? We don't talk about bad news here, and then the doctor's calling you. What the hell?
That's it. What could possibly go wrong when you get a call from the doctor? What could possibly be?
Man, I've got the end of the world bad news for everybody today. That's like the pinnacle of bad news. I'm looking forward to sharing that with the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Truth. If this is your first time here, my name's Rob Bruss, and my co-host Ed Anderson is joining me. We're live here in YouTube on a couple of channels, on Facebook, on Twitter, and a couple of other places around the internet at the same time every day, around give or take 10 minutes of 5:30 Sydney time to 2:30 Minnesota time, 3 o'clock Minnesota time. Yep. Right there. So we talk about all the things happening in the news, and we pull back the curtain and give you the story behind the narrative, and hopefully we're not being instruments of the deep state. And let me give you an example. If you've never heard something like that before, what I did yesterday was a report on how many Kinzhal hypersonic missiles were shot down in Ukraine, and it looks like the score is 7-1. We shot down 7 of theirs, and they clipped one of our Patriot batteries. And someone wrote a really good comment in the comments of that video after it was uploaded in one of the highlights, and they said to me, "Are you believing everything the Ukrainians say?" And I'm like, "That's a really good point. Trust but verify." And they're 100% right. How on earth could I possibly know whether anything is being said to us is true? And I think at some point, this is the problem with governments, and when we find ourselves in situations like this war in Ukraine, at some point, the government is telling us the truth. They're telling us what's going on. And any person with 2 eyes and 2 ears and a brain in their head can see that they're actually telling the truth, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. So, there's lies that they tell you sprinkled with truth in there as well. And they're doing that to perpetuate a narrative. And after I read that comment before we started here today, I thought, maybe I'm being an instrument of the deep state. So my promise to you, ladies and gentlemen, is to be a little bit more careful and maybe try and verify a little bit more. But I went away quickly and I looked at a series of Telegram channels, and I saw some footage, and I saw a series of different things that were out there that helped me to confirm that a lot of what was being said is true. Even if they're not intercepting Kinzhal missiles, or even if the Russians are not firing Kinzhal missiles at them, they are intercepting something, because you can see that in the footage. And one of the things that I've now discovered, and the cat seems to be out of the bag there, is that the Ukrainians have got the PAC-3 system, not the PAC-2 system. So they've got the most advanced Patriot system. And the way that I know that is, looks like there was a photo of a Patriot missile, the actual missile itself, and you can see the back half of the missile. And the back half of a PAC-3 weapon system is quite different to the PAC-2. The missile systems are different because they're smaller. They've got a different launch mechanism on them as well. And you could see that's kind of like it was lying on the side of the road. I'm like, that's a PAC-3 missile. That's the system that they've got in there straight away. So that's kind of good, because even if one of those vehicles did get clipped, there's lots of missiles left in that battery to keep the Ukrainians safe and keep their air defenses going. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time here, that's an example of some of the things that we talk about. We'd love to have you follow us over on Spotify. If you can't get a copy of the YouTube channel going for yourself on a daily basis, you can get the show a couple of hours later. Once I download the files, I'll upload them to Spotify, and you can listen in as a podcast. We're also over on Telegram, where I post a whole lot of R-rated content that can't be shown here on YouTube for one reason or another. And we've got Rumble as our backup channel. And don't forget to follow along on Twitter, where I share lots of unspoken truth that's out there. There's lots of truthers in that audience, which is really cool. There's lots of people sharing lots of crazy conspiracy theories, and if you can wade through that craziness, you will find some interesting things happening over there as well. I'm trying to get Ed to come over, kicking and screaming to Twitter. Are you coming, man? Are you coming? When are you coming?
Eventually, we'll see. What month is this? I'll get there eventually.
If I ask you about technology, I've got to give at least like 6 weeks lead time.
I'll get there.
Hey, you've mastered this StreamYard thing. What? That's working well.
Well, there you go. That's where all my time went. Hey, man, I'm just a personification of irony. On the one hand, as a trader, I always use very sophisticated, trading software and trading.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the day-to-day stuff, look, I've got the latest and greatest, right? You know what I use this guy for? I use it for phone calls.
Phone calls.
That's it.
I've got a tin can and a piece of string between.
There you go.
That's what we need.
My kind of guy. I knew I liked you. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a bit of a laugh today. It's not all so serious, although it is. The topics are serious. We're busy laughing about Zelensky's jumpers as he tours Europe shopping for weapons and billions of dollars in aid for a country that's most corrupt. But we're going to have a laugh about some different things today. Go woke or go broke. Again, I assume you're talking about Miller Lite there, and there's a couple of other companies out there that seem to be...
You never know. Stay tuned. You never know. Don't assume anything with me, man.
In Australia, there's a saying, I don't know if you have the saying in the US, it's a bit rude, but it's Aussie slang, right? And I don't know if it's actually a military saying or it's Aussie slang. I think it might be actually an army saying. And, go woke, go broke. Another way to say that is you're treading on your own dick. I knew that'd give you a laugh, and I knew some Aussie slang in there first thing in my morning and early your afternoon would help. We're going to have a bit of a giggle at the cackling hyena herself, Kamala Harris. Apparently she needs a new translator to navigate through some of the interviews that she's been doing. I also noticed yesterday Joe Biden, he broke up with Anthony Albanese here, and he cancelled his trip to Australia. I got a pretty nasty email actually from the Civil Aviation Safety Authority a couple of days ago. It said, they were pointing a finger at me like this, you will not fly your drone within 21 kilometres of Sydney on these dates. And there's 2 dates in June, whatever it was. Or within 20 kilometres of Canberra and these dates. And I was like, sheesh, man, like, what's going on? Like, why are the regulators they were like, it was like a nasty email, like the tone of the email. And like, if you fly your drone, you're going to have a SWAT team kicking down your drawer. And then I said to my missus, what do you think that is? And she said, President of the United States. And I looked, and yeah, he was going to a Quad meeting in Japan and doing some stuff over in this part of the world, and he was supposed to come down here. But yesterday he quit on that because they have to raise the debt ceiling. There's only 16 days to go, and if he had have come to Australia, it would have meant that he would have been away for 8 of those 16 days. I'm not sure that makes any difference at all, but he's cancelled.
Get him one of these. Get him one of these.
Get on a Zoom call, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, the story I've got for you today, folks, is a little bit of daddy-daughter time in the DPRK. They're about to launch another satellite. They say it's a spy satellite, but they just don't have the level of sophistication to create a spy satellite. And even though we can't see what they're actually looking at or what they're doing, the DPRK and the North Koreans are saying to us that they're ready to mount whatever that spy satellite is on the front end, on the pointy end of a rocket, a long-range rocket, using technology that's been banned, because the technology can be used as an ICBM, of course. And any country that moves to a place where they're using and developing rocket technology is a very dangerous place to be, because that's the delivery mechanism for an ICBM. So we know the Iranians have got a very sophisticated rocket program, and we also know that they've launched into space as well. We know the Chinese have, we know the Russians definitely have, we have as well, and the DPRK have done that a few times. They're going to show you something that might cause quite a bit of alarm in you today, but I'm doing that because I'm trying to shake you by the scruff and wake you up, because this is serious stuff. And the end of the world that might end like that in about that amount of time. And I'm going to show you exactly how that could happen even today. I'll show you how it happened while I was readying myself. Yeah, you need some gold and silver, baby. I'll show you how I was readying myself for that. When I was getting ready for this, I looked at the map that I'm going to show you today, and I went, ooh, if he pressed the button, that'd be the end of the world as we know it right now. And they're about to launch another satellite. So I'm going to tell you some more about that and share that with you, which is kind of pretty interesting. But as we get going for today's show, if you haven't subscribed to us, please go ahead and subscribe and make sure you ring the bell as well. And I'd really encourage you to come on over to Spotify and download the show as a podcast and to subscribe to us there as well. If you're an Apple user, it's over on Apple Podcasts as well. And you can find it where all podcasts are. As it pulls through into Spotify, it pulls into Apple, and then all the other places. So in your favorite podcasting app, just look for this Unspoken Truth, and you can get a hold of us on a daily basis. Ed, I'm going to let you kick off the show and have a little bit of fun with everything that's going on. Go woke, go broke. again, what on earth is happening with this world? It's upside down.
Well, actually, I'm going to start with Kamala.
Oh, all right, even better. Let me get the right graphic. She needs a new translator. Show me why, man. I need a laugh at 5:30 in the morning. Come on, man.
Well, why would you laugh? I mean, this is serious stuff. Okay, so now listen, this is actually very good news for all of us. Yesterday, the communications director for the Kamala office announced a new interpreter/translator for Kamala, and they released a video demonstrating how this new translator will work. So let's take a look at their official press release.
Imaginations, and it forces us to ask big questions. Space, it affects us all, and it connects us all. The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here, and talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
You guys are gonna see, you're gonna literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes.
Oh my goodness.
With your own eyes, I'm telling you, it is gonna be unbelievable. So that's one of the things we can do here too, which makes it so exciting.
When you listen to that cute little girl talking, I swear to you, man, that cute little girl is trying to join the dots of the conversation. She's trying to explain something to you. She knocked her drink over. It was bad. Did you see that the drink got knocked over? And that's what the vice president's trying to do as well. And that's how her, is there something wrong with her? Like, all jokes aside, is there something wrong? Because no one speaks like that.
Well, at least we'll never have to worry again about understanding Kamala. At least now we know that we will get the full translation, the proper translation. So that's good. That's good to know. Listen, it just goes to show that the best person for the job does not necessarily make it to the top in politics. You know,
that's an example of someone failing upwards, right?
There you go. And I have a very strong opinion about how she got to where she is, but this is a family-related show, so I won't go into that topic. But and I think she's a classic, example of how tribalism has taken over politics, and it doesn't matter what your actual skill set is to be president. It's more a matter of which boxes do you check. She was brought in because she was a black woman. What kind of black, anyway? But she was
no meritocracy there at all.
No, I mean, why bother? Why bother with it? It's all about identity politics. Do you check the right boxes? And we suffer, and we see what happens when you promote people on the basis of identity politics rather than meritocracy. We no longer should be saying he's the first black president, she's the first black. That should not matter.
It doesn't matter.
And when you put those hyphenated, words in, Black American, African American, Indian American, hyphenated American should disappear. You're American, and every time they use that hyphenated, description for anybody, they diminish that person. So say, he's an African American doctor. Why did you say that? Why don't you just call him a doctor? Why? Why diminish the person? And if I were a minority, and the way our country is going, I might be a minority in a couple of years. Minorities should resent that. They should resent identity politics. Anyway, so.
When I was growing up, Ed, I was in I played football. I played sport like all Aussie kids do. And as I was playing sport, I played rugby league, and all of the team, bar about 4 or 5 of them, there's 4 or 5 Lebanese kids in my team, really good football players as well. And, we kind of came up through the grades together. We played footy, we played reps together, and all of those sort of things are just pretty normal. And as my son, Travis, started to play soccer, So he got interested in that. He was probably 9 or 10, and he played for a couple of years. I think he played for about 3 or 4 years. But he ended up as the white Aussie kid. In one generation between me and my son, the whole thing had flipped completely. And maybe because of where he lived, because he lived with his mum in Western Sydney, but all of the kids in the soccer team were either African or Indian. And there was only like 2 other white kids in the team. But no one was like, oh, there's African kids here in the team. They're just like, oh, they're just kids. Like, there is no divisiveness like that. And in so many ways, Australia is the only example of a country in the world where multiculturalism actually works. Because here in Australia, people just don't really care where you come from. If you're from Lebanon and your family escaped the war in the 1980s there, then you're just as Australian as some convict that came here in Australia in the 1800s. Like, the whole country is based on immigration, and everybody here knows that. And multiculturalism by itself really is a segregation of society where cultures stay to themselves and they stick to themselves.
Yeah.
But there's no way that you could possibly do that because societies are completely integrated, because people work together, they go to school together, they study together, they party together, and all of these things that bring societies together. Here in Australia, particularly in Sydney, it's a melding pot of nationalities and different people and stuff, and I think it works incredibly well. It's an incredibly vibrant place, and there is no, in my view at least, in my anecdote, there is no divisiveness. Like, I hear the divisiveness in your voice, and I know that really grinds your gears when you see someone like Kamala Harris in, the second most important job in the country, and she made it there. She failed upwards because of what she looks like. It's like ridiculous. Who cares what you look like? I don't care if you look like an alien from Mars.
That's
it
right.
doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is that your ability to do the job. And what's worse? What's worse with the Kamala Harris stuff, all jokes aside, she's been handed the border, and the border has been an absolute disaster. But these Democrats are playing a long game in your country, man, because
sure.
at some point, there's going to come a thing to say that anyone that's come here to the United States, if you vote for the Republicans, they're going to kick you out.
Well, yeah.
So you got to vote for us. We're not going to kick you out. We're going to let you stay.
Well, what makes you think the border is a disaster? Why? Yeah, I mean,
The dead bodies in the river, the children on their own. I don't know.
You ask your typical Democrat, and they view it as a success. This is by design. They want this. Oh yeah, this is by design. This is so that's a whole different topic. We can talk about another time, and we did talk about it. We did do a border segment, a few days ago. People should go back and watch that. But listen, kids aren't born racist. Racism is learned. It's taught to you by your adults and by society.
Do you think America is a racist society? Is that your experience?
No. The vast majority of Americans are not racist.
And you haven't really experienced that?
What else do we have to do to prove it? We elected a black president, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
What more do we have to do? This is what I like is the permanent, the professional victimhood of a certain class out there. These are people who have agendas, and part of their cynical agenda is to divide people. So division is part of a plan. It's part of this is how they get power. Okay, you're a victim, and the only way for you not to be a victim is to elect someone like me, is to give me power so that I can look out for you. And that's the narrative that they I'm with Martin Luther King all the way. Judge a person by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. The amount of melanin you have in your skin should not matter.
It's irrelevant. Yeah. Well, let's shift gears to another topic that Martin Luther King would be rolling in his grave talking about. Go woke, go broke again. Oh my God, there's some bad stuff out there, isn't there? I saw a report with Megan Kelly yesterday. I'll find the clip, folks, and I'll put it down in the description. Any links that we talk about, if this is your first time here, will be in the description for you as well. So I'll have a checkers for that after the show, and I'll pop it in there. But she had a couple of people, and they played the ad where they're trying to. It's like an ad of redemption. Where there are these 2 bikini-clad women, they're mucking around, they're mud wrestling, and there's all this stuff happening. And there's this woman, in a thing coming along saying, "Oh, we apologize for the sins of the past. Sorry about that. Send us all." I'm like, what? what are you doing? Like, what? You know, from a practical perspective, like, how long do these apologies for mistakes have to go on? Like, society was different then. And if you rewind the clock 150 years, if somebody from that time, if we had a time machine and you could go back there and somebody saw us, there would be an aura and a glow around you because your level of consciousness is so much higher than theirs. And society progresses and we advance.
You can't win. You're going to offend somebody. You know,
no matter what.
Yeah, you can't check all the boxes because by definition, you know, you can't check them all. So,
but why are they trying to delete the past? That's like the socialist communist ideology. Delete the sins of the past for a utopian future. It's strange.
Oh, this is all part of a grand agenda. So
there's something else going on.
Oh yeah. This is by design, man. You got to ask yourself, you know, when whether it's climate change or whether it's trans rights, you can't look at these arguments at face value. You got to do what you've been talking about, what I've been talking about ever since we started the show, is why are they doing this? What's the purpose of this message? Who
stands to gain the most from a company going woke? You know, the Budweiser thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks has been absolutely devastating for that business, like literally billions of dollars. And you know, it goes to the heart of that old saying that any PR is good PR. And sure, if something goes wrong in a business and people are talking about your business and, you know, the name of your business is on everybody's lips, sure, that's good PR, whether it's good or bad, the conversation. But if it's tied to a plummet in your stock price to the tune of billions of dollars, it's unbelievable how those things are not corrected. And there's no coming back from that. That company is not coming back.
Well, dude, that's the old Madison Avenue matcha. Any news is good news. Well, no, I'm sorry.
Not in this modern era. It's not. No.
Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe when there was 4 or 5 channels previously in the 1980s or something.
Right. Yeah. All right, so let me show you the presentation, and then we can talk after. I think you're going to like particularly the ending of this, Robert.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so you would think that the big corporations would be more interested in profits than anything else, right? I mean, that is their job. We do still live in a capitalist system. Well, at least for the time being we are, but it looks like we are moving away from that. So why would they do that? Why would they sacrifice their sales, their profits? And I'm going to talk about that toward the end of this video. But let's talk about what's going on here.
I got a bad feeling about this.
So let's start by just quickly reviewing what I talked about the other day regarding consumer spending. So do you remember when I showed you this article out of Zero Hedge and we looked at this chart and it showed you the total credit and debit card spending per household since July of 2021? And we saw the dramatic decrease. Okay, so we shouldn't be surprised that the consumer is already in a financial crunch. But on top of that, we have corporations who are determined to go woke. Now, the most famous recent example was Bud Light. Remember, they hired that guy who thinks that he is a 12-year-old girl, and he is celebrated for it, and Bud Light hired him as a spokesman. And in case you are in a different country and you aren't paying attention, the sales for Bud Light and all Anheuser-Busch products has plummeted. But they've gone woke, and I don't know whether they're ever going to be able to recover from it. But do they care? We've seen a lot of other corporations going woke in an obvious way. The reason why I want to focus on this today is because I got kind of a special interest in this particular story, because I'm going to talk to you about Target stores. The Target is headquartered in Minneapolis, you know, where I am, and their headquarters is just a couple miles from me. So this is a hometown company for me. So what is going on at Target? And are they going to suffer the same fate that Budweiser is suffering? I think so. So let's take a look at what's going on at Target. Okay, this is also out of Zero Hedge. Softening sales trends. Target stores go woke as consumer slowdown signals accelerate. We came into 2023 clear-eyed about what consumers are facing with persistent inflation and rising interest rates. We were determined to build on our guest trust by unifying as one team to deliver affordable joy each and every day as consumers and businesses navigate a third straight year of dynamic challenges. Specifically, Target pointed to a worsening blow from organized retail theft, which is expected to erode profits by an additional $500 million compared with last year, when Target was already contending with rising theft. So they're losing an awful lot of money through organized theft. Thank you very much, BLM. But in addition to the regular slowdown of consumer spending for economic reasons and the organized retail theft, thanks to the Black Lives Matter movement, in addition to that, they're going woke.
Target is once again getting Pride Month kicked off a few weeks early by unveiling their ever-expanding selection of LGBT-themed merchandise, with much of it specifically aimed at children. The Daily Wire reports, quote, Target unveiled a number of clothing items and accessories, including apparel and books meant for babies and young children, as part of the retail behemoth's latest Pride collection. In addition to the adult collection, which included a t-shirt emblazoned with the words queer, 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 a short-sleeved bright green boiler suit, and a hoodie which declares not a phase, the company offered several items meant for kids and babies. The store is selling onesies and small shirts with phrases like being proud and just be you and feel the love, as well as rainbow-colored leggings, tutu skirts, and jumpers. Target likewise offers bibs that say, I am proud of you always, rainbow sandals and swimwear, and socks with various LGBTQ-related themes. Shoppers with pets can purchase rainbow backpacks, chew toys, treats, leashes, collars, and cat scratchers. The retailer has garnered controversy for several years with Pride collections meant to commemorate the June LGBTQ festivals. Items sold last year included breast binders, packing underwear, and other offerings meant for self-identified transgender individuals, drawing backlash against the company. I should also mention that they're along with these products for kids, they're also selling LGBT children's books and all the rest of it. And if you go into a Target right now, you're going to see all that. As soon as you walk in the store, you're going to see all of that front and center, proudly on display. The chest binders and the packing underwear, those are items that are still on offer this year. Here's a video posted by somebody who seems to be trying to defend Target against claims that it's selling these kinds of things for children. So this is someone she's not upset about this, it seems. She's trying to defend Target. And but in the process of trying to defend Target, she actually exposes what Target is doing accidentally. Let's watch.
I'm sorry I chose you again. I just needed to do the bathing suit the last bit. I found the tuck bathing suits, the tuck friendly bathing suits. So if you need a women's bathing suit and you have a little extra meat down there that you got to hide, you have one option. That is the only bathing suit that I found in the entire store, and it's in the Pride section. It's not in the kids section, women's section, boys section, baby section. It is in the Pride section. It was the only one I could find. And I did have another adult with me checking all the tags so that I didn't have to stay in the store for 9 hours.
Okay, so tuck-friendly bathing suits, if you have, as she says, a little extra meat down there, but they aren't in the kids section, she hastens to add. They're in the Pride section.
Some gifts for my kids.
Can you not record me, please?
I'm recording her.
I'm recording her.
Oh, she's recording me.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm done.
Okay. Where's the straight section for straight kids?
Indoctrination of kids, and you're like behind.
Here are the top reasons I no longer shop with Target. From the moment you walk in, they hit you with a Starbucks so you can donate to an abortion before you even start shopping. They allow men to use the same restroom as your daughters. Live, laugh, lesbian. Queer, 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 queer! Newborn Pride onesies. The end proud. Little boys' clothes. And it's no surprise that they're all on clearance. There are woke children's books, tuck-friendly bathing suits.
So why would all these corporations be doing this? Sacrificing their sales, sacrificing their profits for the sake of going woke? Well, I'll tell you why. It's all boiling down to this global movement toward ESG. All of these corporations, they want that high ESG score. And who determines that? Listen, you can draw a line straight up to this guy.
Let's have no more of these useless meetings. Eh? From now on, I'll protect your interests. And I'll make your decisions. Let me show you my plan for Animal Farm.
All right.
Well, you definitely gave me a laugh. I've got a bit of extra meat down there. I might need to get a new bathing suit. Like,
Well, I will admit that all the time I didn't know what you were talking about, Rob, when you kept talking to me about these tuck-friendly bathing suits that you have.
it's so unbelievably strange because large FMCG retail like that is driven by sales, and how many people would want to buy something like that? How many people would want to? It's like next to nobody, man.
Yeah. How big do they think that demographic is?
It's like, so just put aside all the wokeness stuff for a sec and assume that people actually need those things and they want those things. The amount of, and where those two girls were standing, and that guy goes, "Don't film me." She was standing there. There's a counter, and then there's there's probably 5 or 6 displays there of different things. So if I was I just know this from working in this space and playing it in the retail space. I worked with Woolworths a little bit and did a bit of consulting back with Woolworths for a while, a couple of years ago. And if you want to get your product, and I've worked with several people over the years that have got their products into Woolworths and Coles, and the scale of those operations is just freaking enormous, man. Like there's literally a Woolworths and a Coles in every single suburb or every probably third suburb in Australia. The footprint of those places is huge. And in order for you to actually get your products in those stores, you have to show that you've got a footprint and the capital behind you to be able to sustain that in the stores that they want you to actually sell their products and services. So to get the shelf space and the store space like that costs an absolute fortune, man.
Yeah.
When you go in the supermarket and you're walking down the supermarket with your trolley there in your cart and you kind of like look and you go, "Oh, I'll buy that." And that thing where you go, "Oh," and you reach across at your eye level, they pay for that. They pay for that level, that store space. So who is it that's actually paying for the shelf space in Target like that? It has to be Target. It has to be their products.
I mean, traditionally, if you want to get your product into one of those chain stores, you have to prove the worthiness of your product. It's a whole science, right? A certain caliber of product would go at eye level, a certain caliber would be at this level, a certain, and you have to, really wow executives just to get into the store. And then to get the premium shelving, you have to there's like an audition process. How good is the product? And depending on how good it is, will determine on placement, where is it placed? Well, now all that also seems to be going out of the window. Now,
imagine being a fly on the wall for a second in that executive meeting where I've got those tuck-friendly pants. Okay, everybody, we've got the tuck-friendly pants coming in. Edward, please come inside and model the tuck-friendly Speedos for us, mate. And some model comes in, and some executive's sitting there looking, going, "Yeah, that looks like a good idea. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. Show me that children's book again. Show me that children's book. Why are you talking about?" Oh, because that has to be included. It's an ESG thing. We have to have that. We have to have inclusion in there. Are you kidding me?
I mean, that's the only explanation you can come up with, because it's not profit driven. I mean, the demographics cannot be that high for the LGBT community. Not to mention the pushback by the regular customers who are going to start boycotting just on principle. They're not going to start going. So they had to have known that, but for them, they made a decision. You know what? We're woke now, and we have different priorities. So,
do you think that mainstream people look at these things and they see it, and then they go, "Oh, who cares? What do I care? It doesn't affect me."
No.
Or do you think those ladies that were filming with their phone, that woman at the end, she was like real? She was like serious. Like, "I'm never going there again, ever, never, ever." Do you think that there's some executive somewhere in Target that goes, "You know what, we're going to lose a bunch of the audience here, but they never really bought that much anyway. Who cares, whatever."
Well, and if that's the way that executive thought, he's in for a really rude awakening. Just have him call his buddy over at Bud Light and
at Miller as well.
Yeah. No, so I think there is a big pushback. The silent majority, most people who do not make a ruckus, listen, it's the old, squeaky wheel gets all the grease syndrome, right? The people who shout the loudest, they get the most attention and they get things done. Most people are not confrontational. most people are agreeable. The squeaky wheels are non-agreeable people, right? They're constantly victims, and they want you to know that they're a victim, and they demand that you take care of them, and they raise voices loud enough until you do something just to shut them up. But most people are not that way. Most people they don't go into Target to make a.
I think you're 1,000% correct, and the way that I can validate what you're saying is if you just look at what happened to Budweiser in the last couple of weeks, is that they put out literally a series of ads, just a handful of ads to do that. And the military did that as well. Remember, we did that report on the military doing it as well. And their numbers crashed. So the military numbers, whatever, it didn't really work. Go to the next thing. It's not tied back to a financial outcome. But we saw the share price of Bud just go and crash. And that's because most people that have seen that and heard about that just go, the easiest thing to do is just not buy that beer. When I go to the bottle, there's like 50 different choices. I just won't choose that one anymore. It's as simple as that. And they're the silent majority that have caused billions of dollars worth of losses. And that's what these idiot wokesters don't realize, is that the silent majority actually have all the power, because the wokesters are just a handful of people. That's such a strange thing, because and I think you're also really correct, and you're on the money when you say that it's coming from an ESG score and it's coming from head office of Target. It's not coming from low-level management. It's coming from senior level management to try and be as divisive as possible while being as inclusive as possible. And whatever the cost is, the cost is. So I see that, and even though none of what you're talking about is here in Australia, and I haven't seen any of that, but to me, that's a complete and total boycott for me as well. There's absolutely no way I would ever go in there and buy out of there anyway. But here in Australia, Target went and crashed and burned. So I don't know if it's...
Do you guys have Target?
We do, but I don't know if it's the same thing. I'd have to look into that. We have a Kmart, which is like your version of a Walmart, and that was always better. Anyway, Target was always a bit more of an upmarket version of a Kmart, or they tried to be, or something like that. But when I see that now, I just think here in Australia, just out of principle, because your name is associated with it, see you later.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder at what point are all these corporations going to start ditching their wokeness? At what point? I mean, is there an out point? Maybe they don't care about profits anymore, as long as they get that. As long as they're invited to the right cocktail parties in Davos, Switzerland, maybe they don't care about all the rest of them. Who knows? Look, communism didn't work. But
what it is, it's a class. So what you're describing is a class-driven society. Mm-hmm. So you say they don't care about it because all they care about is being invited to the right cocktail parties. Right. That's class-driven, right? So yeah. I'm the elite business corporate class here, and I don't really care what happens to the workers down there if they keep their jobs, whatever. I don't care, because I'm secure in this position here. And I know that because I've made it to this point in my life, if I have to leave, I'm still going to be here at this point in my life, just in another business doing the same things, and I'll still be getting invited over there because I made it there like that. That is very class-driven, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Look, the biggest communists you'll ever find are the rich people, because they got their dough, and although they want you to start eating bugs, I promise you, they're going to keep eating their T-bone steaks.
Well, they like communism and they like socialism. So why don't we take all of their wealth and distribute it evenly? Because the minute you say that, they're like, "Oh, is that what communism is?" Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, they won't like. And one of my favorite arguments was, because you can point to them, socialism and communism has never worked anywhere in history. And
it's never been tried properly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, they didn't do it right. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it the right time this time around.
Have you read the book, The Gulag Archipelago?
No, but it's on my list because you keep talking about it.
Yeah, you get the audio book in your ears, but just be careful at the time of the day that you listen to it, because it'll drag you all the way down. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what the Gulag Archipelago is, it's unspoken truth about communism and socialism. So it's written by, it is the single most important book of the 20th century. There's a lot of books that were written in the last century. That's the most important one. So if you've never read that or you've never heard of that before, I encourage you to actually have a look at it. So it was written by a guy named Alexander Solzhenitsyn, if I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm butchering that.
No, but right.
he was a Russian soldier on the front, and right at the end of the war, he was picked up by the secret police and thrown in the gulag for corresponding with one of his mates back home. And he was corresponding about things that they didn't like, even though he didn't really do anything and he didn't really know what was going on. And he was locked up for a decade or so. But in the time that he was locked up, he's one of the most incredible writers that you've ever read or seen ever. He's just amazing. And when you look beyond the book, The Gulag Archipelago, because he came to America and toured America, and you read his speeches are unbelievable as well. I spent a lot of time reviewing that and looking at that, because when I discovered it, I realized how important it was, because what he did was highlighted the unspoken truth of communism. He showed you exactly how communism works. He shows you how a socialist system works, how that Animal Farm, George Orwell, 1984 style thing is actually real in communism, and it is the most abhorrent, horrible, awful thing that you could possibly imagine. You wouldn't imagine in your wildest dreams that communism would have been like that. You just couldn't have seen it. You just didn't know. And then when you read about it in that context that he talks about, and you're like, that can't happen today. That couldn't be possibly true. All you got to do is just, for you guys there in the States, is look across the road to Cuba. All we have to do is look across the road here to the CCP, to Vietnam and to North Korea, and we can see it all, right? And we can see it unfolding in front of our eyes, where there's still currently gulags. There's concentration camps in China. There's gulags in the middle of North Korea. The entire population is starving. The entire population has been put to work for the purpose of some living deity in North Korea. It doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. And what you're describing in this video, this go woke, go broke again thing, it teeters on the verge of technocracy coupled with socialism, coupled with communism. It's just horrendous, man. It's a horrendous place to be going in society.
It just really emphasized the importance that freedom and democracy has to be taught to every generation. And we have now for decades, for generations, not been teaching the values of democracy and freedom to our children. And that leaves a vacuum. And say what you want about these socialists, they have a really good marketing campaign. They're slick, man. Everything's free. Everything's free. People love that. That's a pretty enticing sales pitch. Everything's free, no consequences. The freedom-loving people out there have not done a good job teaching their children the evils of socialism and the nobility of capitalism and of freedom. Because socialism, it's easy. Everything's free. But then right behind it is all the carnage and all the horror that never gets talked about. However, we freedom-loving people, we have to freaking work for a living. That's a harder sell. You want to be financially independent, you got to make it happen. You can't rely on the government. It's on you. People don't like to have it on them. They want people to take care of them. And I'm sorry, people, but if you want true freedom, if you want true personal sovereignty, you cannot rely on other people, particularly the government.
Especially the government.
Yeah, I mean, remember, whatever the government gives you, the government can take away. Our personal freedoms, our personal, liberties don't come from government. No, they come from God. And you don't want your liberty to come from government, because anything the government gives you, the government can take away.
Yeah, it's 100% right. Yomi Park, the North Korean escapee/defector, highlights it really well when she escapes North Korea, and then she lives in South Korea for a little while, then eventually makes her way to the United States, gets herself set up, and then goes to university, only to discover that what they're teaching in university was the same thing that they were teaching in North Korea. And like, what the hell? I want to close out this part of the show by saying to people that in a book I read a little while ago, remember folks, if you don't read 100 books a year, you're functionally illiterate. You need to read. You need to read consistently. You need to be getting something in your ears, whether that's an audio book or a book in your hand. I've got a couple of books on the table here behind me that I've been reading the last couple of days, because I think it's important especially about what I'm about to show you. And in Rebecca Koffler's book called Putin's Playbook, one of the things she talks about is her upbringing. So she was brought up in Russia under communism, right? She grew up under that regime. And one of the quotes that I remember from that book, her dad says, the funniest thing about communism, and it goes to the very heart of what you were just saying about the government, is that the government, we go to work and we pretend to work, and the government pretends to care and pretends to pay us. So that's, the poverty that they suffer under those regimes is not like anything you could possibly even hope to imagine. It is just horrendous how bad it is. And those systems don't work.
Argentina.
What an absolute basket case, right? What an absolute basket case. All right, let's shift gears to some daddy-daughter time in the DPRK. If you don't know, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, it's not democratic and it's not a republic. It's a totalitarian regime where the ruler of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, believes that he's a living god. He's a living deity. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is read the North Korean propaganda. There's a guy out there named Michael Malice, and was born in Russia, and his parents emigrated to the United States, and he'd had a fascination with communism his whole life, and he actually went to North Korea, and he pulled out all of the propaganda for us to read and to listen to. And when you read and listen to the propaganda from the North Koreans, and it's all in English because they want us to actually know it, so it's properly translated. There's nothing lost in translation there. It is really interesting. They believe that Kim Jong-un, has the sun shines out of his ass, and before him, Kim Il-sung, the sun shined out of his ass, and this is a dynasty that will last thousands of years. And we've got the next generation of these freaks coming through now, and I'm just going to share my screen and play a little video with you because I think it's quite funny. This is what they do in North Korea for daddy-daughter time. So you would have seen one of these parades. This parade was 3 months ago, so this was at the start of the year. So what we can see on the screen here is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and there's one around the corner, 11 ICBMs, intercontinental nuclear missiles. So this is the parade that they go through, and this is all the military on one side, the civilians on the other side. If you're not clapping and you stop clapping first, you're going to be thrown in the gulag for 10 years. But this is a family event. Everybody comes out and has a look. Everybody's ordered to come out and have a look, and they put on these really slick parades and they see what's happening. There's the boss man himself saying g'day to everybody. He's all happy about the nukes. And if I just pause the video right there. So this woman here in the middle, this is his sister, who is hopefully nothing ever happens to him because she's next in line and she is like way, way worse than him. And this person here is his daughter. So this is Kim Jong-un's daughter. So the reason that I'm showing you that is because when I've got a daughter, and you've also got kids, Ed. And, when your kids were little and you would go out and spend some daddy-daughter time with your kids, it was kind of cool, right? Kim Jong-un brings his kid to a parade where they're showing nuclear missiles. So just think about I can't think of any other way to say it. Just think about how fucked up this is. Nuclear missiles are designed to destroy hundreds of thousands of people at a time and destroy entire cities and just the absolute worst weapons that have ever been created by humanity. And he parades all 11 ICBMs that he's got in one evening, and they just drive down the street. It probably takes 20 minutes for all of that to happen. And his daughter is clapping that. He's clapping the fact that they've got nuclear missiles, they've got nuclear weapons.
She better.
It's fucked up, man. It really is. Yeah. And if you're not clapping, yeah. So again, this is in the Gulag Archipelago book. It talks about how Stalin comes out into these rooms and everybody's clapping. And if you watch the communists clap, they clap in front of their nose like this, and they get their elbows right up and they're clapping like that. So it can be seen that you're clapping. And so the people that are in the room when Stalin comes out, the first person to stop clapping gets a tenner. And a tenner means you're going to get 10 years in the Gulag. You get a tenner. And there's people clapping, and then there's old people there, in their 60s and 70s clapping, and they fall over and collapse because they've been clapping for 10 minutes because it's too hard for them, it's physical, and they're on the ground still clapping. And Stalin stands there until somebody gets a tenner. That's the totalitarian rule that actually goes on. So Did that really happen? Is that really true? There's a lot of stories about that being not true, and is it true? But that's, even if it's not true, that's still the mindset and the mentality of them. And when you watch Kim Jong-un come out in front of his parliament, in front of everybody that's there, it looks like the Chinese parliament, by the way. It looks almost identical because it's built on that system. Everybody is clapping like that. Everybody's clapping in front of their nose like these seals. It's very, very strange. So just yesterday, Kim Jong-un took his daughter on another excursion. He took her out for some more daddy-daughter time, and they were going to inspect the components of a spy satellite that's about to be launched, which they anticipate is going to be in the next week or so. And so here's dad talking to the scientists, and here's his daughter having a little peek at the camera, and everybody's got eyes front and center. This dude in the middle better be careful. Hopefully he's just blinking, not having a snooze, because he's going to be in big trouble if he is snoozing. I think he's just blinking, it's just the camera, because Kim's going to give him a slap on the back of the head. And here he is. Here's the dad and the boss man with his daughter. So daddy-daughter time in North Korea means inspecting nuclear weapons on parade, inspecting the entire army, the air force, and the military, and everything that goes on. But it also goes to inspecting spy satellites. So it's come out that we don't really know what this spy satellite is. It's said that, because there's no images of it, right? When you look in all the open source media and intelligence that's out there, they don't show it. Yeah. But a couple of months ago, they showed Kim Jong-un walking through a room which looks like a concrete bunker. And as he's walking through the room, he's walking past all of the nuclear warheads. And there looks to be in that room 60 or 70 of them. So he's got a lot of nukes, right? And on top of those ICBMs, he can put a lot of weapons. He could probably put 8 or 9 weapons on the top of it, the re-entry vehicles, the MRF re-entry vehicles. So the top of the missile looks like a triangle, but inside of that triangle, there's little triangles, which are the nuclear warheads, which are the re-entry vehicles. So the thing is that I don't think that the North Koreans would ever use an ICBM to strike the United States. They might. They've got 11 missiles right now. So it takes 4 missiles to intercept 1 incoming ICBM. So they use a thing called THAAD, Theater High Altitude Ballistic Missile Defense, and that's where you hit a missile with a missile. So they use a weapon system called an SM-6 to do that, from a Aegis guided missile destroyer, or an SM-3 from a land-based missile battery. And at the moment, the Americans have got, how many do you reckon? 44 missiles. Okay. Yeah, so they got, so work with me on the math here. They got 44 missiles. Kim Jong-un has got 11 missiles.
Now, when you say they have 11, you mean 11 types? Or
No. 11 physical missiles, so 11 intercontinental ballistic missiles. So the truck driving down the street with the missile in the back of it looks like Kim Jong-un's dick, but that's they've got 11 of them. So
that doesn't sound like very much.
Doesn't sound like very many missiles, right? Yeah. So work with me on the math here. Okay. They've got 11 missiles. So what? You've got thousands. Yeah. You've got 11 missiles, but you've only got 44 interceptors. If it takes 4 interceptors for 1 ICBM, 4 times 11, if you forgot your high school math, is 44. So if he gets 1 more missile and he fires all 12 missiles at you at once, one of them's going to get through. And if there's half a dozen MRF re-entry vehicles on the top of that missile, you're going to wear 6 nuclear explosions.
Yeah, well,
that's the end.
You know, to paraphrase Donald Trump, ours work.
Well, and that's the other thing, you know, I've got a red button on my desk, but I've got a bigger red button on my desk. Here it is here, yeah. But that's the arms race that we're in, and not people just don't know that. It is the unspoken truth. He's got 11 missiles, you've got 44 interceptors. If he gets 1 more missile, and we show footage of him walking through a bunker, I should have found the footage and the images. He's walking through the bunker, and there's like 50 or 60 warheads that are actually there that just need to be put into the MRFs and mounted on the top of there. So why am I talking about North Korean satellites? Why am I talking about that? Well, I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show you something that has happened, and this happened like many years ago. So this satellite here, let me just refresh the page to see where this thing is. So this satellite here is called the KSM-4, and I'll put the link to this in the description down below. And so you can come here. This is where you can track any satellite, by the way, if you have seen something that's happened or you want to know when the space station is going to fly over your house or something like that, you can see it. So you can see this is the tracking data. So this satellite here is tracking here to the east of Australia, right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean right now, yeah? But you can see it's gone over the top of North America, just where my mouse is here, and over the top of Alaska is the next projected thing. If I click draw footprint, that is the EMP footprint. If you don't know, folks, EMP stands for electromagnetic pulse. Nuclear war won't happen the way that you think it will happen. Nuclear war is not like a Terminator movie where there's 400 missiles that are ground bursts that destroy the cities. Nuclear war is not like that. That's not how we train for nuclear war. The way the Russians, the North Koreans, and the Chinese, and the Iranians as well, train for nuclear war is to use a first strike electromagnetic pulse weapon. And the EMP weapon is designed to destroy all of the electronics over a particular target. And there's several different ways that they can let those weapons off. One of the really scary ways of doing that is by taking a ship and parking it in the Gulf of Mexico, a cargo ship. This scenario has played out a couple of times in real life. And inside the cargo hold of these ships, open it up, and there's a missile system in there that can fire and a delivery mechanism to let the EMP go off at about 100,000 feet over the center of the continental United States, which would turn the lights off for the whole United States. So earlier, just as I was getting ready to make this video, it went right over the top of North America, and where I happened to take the screenshot of it was right there. So if Kim Jong-un was in his office and he decided that he wanted to destroy the Great Satan once and for all because he ponied up with his mates in Iran and China and he was ready to go, if he hit the red button on his desk, that satellite, which we believe is an EMP weapon, they say that it's a weather satellite. But you know how many times it's transmitted since it was launched? So a weather satellite, right? You think the weather, it's like showing me the weather, the clouds, it's taking data. How many times it's transmitted since it was launched? None.
Ever? Yeah.
Never. It's never transmitted, ever. So the only thing that this could be was a proof of concept that we can get a satellite into space using our rocket technology, because that's our ICBM technology. And if it happened to be successful, we could use it as an EMP weapon to wipe out the United States in one go. So everything down to something as small as your mobile phone will be destroyed in an EMP strike. Everything. And these are known as super EMP weapons. And super EMP weapons are designed to destroy the entire country with one go. So your grid there in the United States is not hardened against it. And what the EMP weapon will do is it destroys all of the transformers at your substations. So the transformer at the substation is like as big as a locomotive train. They're massive. And the only place that they come from is from Germany or from South Korea. That's where they're built. They can't be built anywhere else in the world. And you've probably got a few spares on the shelf there in the US, but if the EMP weapon goes off and it destroys hundreds of substations, literally maybe thousands of substations and the transformers there, that's the end of life as you know it in the United States. The whole world's economy will collapse as a result of one super EMP weapon. And this madman in North Korea is about to launch another one of these super EMP weapons under the guise of it being a spy satellite. But the North Koreans are not known for having high-tech industries that enable high-tech optics to put even a small state cube-based satellite. Here in Australia, we have a pretty robust space industry, and small satellites are the key to actually growing in space, where you can build rocket technology literally in your backyard to get that satellite into a low Earth orbit to do, in a geostationary orbit to do what it is that you want it to do. But the North Koreans are not known for having the optical technology to actually put something that would be looking down, or the E-link technology to listen to the electronic SIGINT stuff that's coming through that would actually help them and benefit them. So if they launch this so-called spy satellite and it doesn't go into a geostationary orbit above North Korea, meaning it stops above North Korea and it's orbiting planet Earth, we're going to see another super EMP weapon in space. And so far they've got two of them. The Iranians have got a couple in space as well. And How many have we got? Don't know. How many of the Russians got? Probably a few. How many of the Chinese got? Probably a lot. Because that's the asymmetric advantage that the enemy has against us to take out our space-based assets. And it might not necessarily be in space to take out your country and the electrical grid and the transformers there. It might be in space to take out all of the satellite technology that you've got. Because if we can make the GPS go away, and we can make all the communication satellites go away, you're essentially turning the eyes and ears of the military off to make it blind and deaf, and you're unable to go against it. So that's how the enemy are planning to destroy us. I believe with everything in my fiber that World War III doesn't start in Europe with Russia invading Ukraine. World War III starts when China tell North Korea to invade South Korea. And they hit the button on the EMP weapon, and then the Chinese go after the Taiwanese, and then the Iranians will go after the Israelis with their own nuke. That's the jackpot that we're looking for in the next couple of years. And there's no way that any country in the world, even if we come together as a coalition, can fight back against any of that. And unfortunately, if the North Koreans go after the South Koreans, they will use their super EMP weapons. That's what they'll do. The minute you see this thing launch in the next week, if that goes into an orbit of some description, at a low Earth orbit, the same as that other one that I just showed you, the KSM-4 there, then you can safely say that that's a super EMP weapon. It's not a spy satellite. It's not transmitting anything. And we'll know if it transmits as well. We'll be able to see that. The SIGINT shows us that we can do it. Folks, a lot of the information that I've learned about all of this comes from a guy named Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, but he was the person who worked for the CIA in the 80s, so in the late 70s and 80s. And I think he worked there for about 15 years. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember exactly. But he was the one responsible for formulating all of the reactions to the nuclear threats that we faced. And these types of books here, so nuclear EMP attack scenarios and combined arms cyber warfare. So this book is all about nuclear EMP. And the picture on there is a picture of Starfish Prime. That's the bomb that went off in the atmosphere and turned off all the lights in Hawaii. Yeah, accidentally. Oops, we didn't mean to do that. So that's what nuclear war looks like on the cover of this book. It doesn't look like a Terminator movie where there's a giant ground burst and a huge mushroom cloud. This is what nuclear war looks like. There's another book, folks, that I encourage you to go and get, and once again, I'll put all of the links in the description, is this. It's called Nuclear War Survival Skills, and this book is revised every year. Now, is this doomsday prepping stuff? Yes, absolutely, it is. You need to know what to do if a nuclear weapon goes off, because the threat of nuclear war has never, ever been so close. Where Ed and I talk about this every other day here on the channel, that if the Ukrainians take back Crimea, cut them off at Melitopol and Mariupol, and they cut off the Kerch Bridge, that will be seen as an existential threat to Russia, because that's Russian territory, Crimea. Never mind the southern part that they've taken back there in the Zaporizhia region and down the bottom there. If they try and take back Crimea, it's all on for the Russians. It's already all on for the Russians. And it's just a matter of time before this escalates. And the way that they'll escalate it is with super EMP weapons. Weapons designed to take out our electrical grid and destroy every single electronic device in our society. That's what nuclear war looks like, folks. It's not a Terminator movie where ground bursts look like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's not that at all. If they let off 5 or 10 super EMP weapons over the United States, your whole country will be a blackout. And it's said that if the power goes off, 70 to 80% of the population will die within the first 12 months. It is dire scenarios. This is like the worst doomsday you could possibly think of. Nuclear apocalypse is not like a Terminator movie. It's not. I keep coming back to that because that's the thing that's what Hollywood planted in our minds. The nuclear apocalypse just means there's no power, water, electricity, or sanitation. And there's no petrol for your cars, there's no diesel for trucks. And all of that just completely goes away and society will completely collapse. The way, it's the Sun Tzu way of war, man. They can win the war without firing a single shot. And what they do is they divide us. And we've never been more so divided for the topics that we've been talking about so far today. Never in human history has society been so unbelievably connected and divided at the same time. And if they launch a nuclear EMP strike against us, man, that's the end. And they will take over. The Chinese will take over, the North Koreans will take over, and so will the Russians. And they've got weapons that can do that to us. They've got the asymmetric advantage against us because they've been training the whole entire time to win a nuclear war while we're sitting on this side of the fence saying nuclear war should never be fought because it can never be won, using doctrine from the 1970s and the 1980s in the Cold War. Meanwhile, they threw that doctrine in the bin and said, we can win a nuclear war against these jokers. And they can, and if they do it, they will. This is a very, very scary scenario. We're teetering on the edge of complete and total catastrophe in our society. And I'm making light and joking that daddy-daughter time in North Korea means inspecting nuclear EMP weapons, but it's actually not a joke. It's a real thing, and it's really going on, and that actually happened. It's strange, man. The upside-down world that we live in is very strange when daddy-daughter time means watching nuclear missiles on parade and then inspecting super EMP weapons that can destroy countries and then being happy about it. I don't know what to say, man. All you can do is be prepared and get ready and make sure that you know what to do. You need physical hard copies of this content, folks. Having a downloaded PDF is no good if the EMP weapon goes off and kills your computer and kills the power. It won't work. You need to know what to do. You need to know how to do these things and what's going on. This book is actually really good. So it was written in the 1960s, I want to say, and every year it's updated. So the people that write this book, what they do is they give a copy, the latest copy, to somebody that has never seen it before. They say, have a checkers of that, and what I want you to do is I want you to go through and circle the things that you don't understand. So somebody goes through this book, they look at it, the type font is very small, of course, because there's a lot to it, but what they do is I don't know how to do that, what does that mean? And then they revise the book every single year to dumb it down to make it really easy for people to understand. So it's worthwhile getting a copy of that. It's worthwhile getting yourself some first aid books. It's worthwhile having about 3 months worth of food and water and toilet paper and all of the things that make your life comfortable and enjoyable, and just do a little bit of prepping. Because if the worst comes to pass, at least you're ready for it. And at least you won't go into a mad panic when Kim Jong-un hits that red button on his desk and turns the lights off in America. That's a very scary proposition. Imagine what would happen if that went on. But you don't have to think too far. There's plenty of movies and shows about that. Just go and watch The Walking Dead for a couple of episodes, or go and watch The Last of Us for a couple of episodes, and you will see how Hollywood depicts the collapse of society and what really goes on. It's a scary proposition. Well, there you go, Ed. That's my warm and fuzzy feeling about the DPRK and daddy-daughter time. What do you think? Have you had some daddy-son time like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My favorite time was taking like air shows to watch.
Yeah.
To watch, wars playing
Watch
out.
Machines of War.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
My sons actually met the Paul Tibbets and the Enola Gay crew.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. I got video of it, and we got the book and have them to sign. I had my boys' pictures taken with Paul Tibbets. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But listen, get your money out of the bank, put some of your money into gold and silver, establish streams of passive recurring income, and do all the prepping that you can possibly do. Listen, there's no downside in doing your prepping. There's no downside in doing everything that we just told you. Okay. If you put your money into gold and silver, you're not spending anything. You're just transferring your money from a really lousy asset class into a solid one, an actual borrowable, asset. I mean, if you ever want to put your gold and silver back into cash, go ahead. It's the easiest thing in the world. For the year and a half worth of toilet paper that I have in my closet where people laugh about, hey, listen, when the time comes, that's going to be a pretty good barterable item. So they'll, not to mention with inflation, it's a good investment. I'm not going to.
What's another good one I was thinking of the other day, because I was it happened because it actually happened to me, man, and it was big trouble. I have. Do you have a coffee machine at home that uses capsules?
No.
So normally I just have instant coffee out of a jar, right? Like, I'm not really that fussed, and I have a couple of cups of coffee in the morning just out of really habit and routine. But for something different, I bought some capsules, and I don't, they were on sale. They were like, it was $10 for 40 of them. And I thought, oh, if I have one cup of coffee a day, that'll last me a month. There you go. So why don't I do that? And it was $10 versus $15. It was cheaper than a jar of coffee, which lasts about a month. So I did that. But I got to the last, I pulled the drawer out and there's one there and I put it in there and I was like, oh, damn, that's the last one. And I looked and there was no other coffee here. And I thought, oh. And it's like 4:30 in the morning here where I'm getting ready for this to come on this. And I'm like, oh. And I thought to myself, that is a valuable commodity, man. People can't be without their coffee or without their tea or without their afternoon whiskey or their beer. And you know, you gotta be ready for these things, man. Because I would have traded you a month's worth of toilet paper for half a jar of coffee. You're in.
Yeah. No, right. I'm loaded up on coffee. Yeah. No, absolutely.
There is no downside. I tell you what happened the other day, all of this doom and gloom and this prepping, I came across a gardening channel on YouTube of all things. And I thought, okay, instead of watching the war, why don't I, how hard can it be? So on the thumbnail of the YouTube video, it had like some graphics. It was like 2 squares, a little bit like what we're looking there. It was 2 squares and it said year 1, year 2. And it had where you planted the garden and then the second year where you planted the garden. So I started watching this video and this Canadian lady, and she knew what she was doing, and she was explaining, this is how you plant the garden, this is the reasons why you do it, this is how you would do it the next year, and these are the reasons why. And then the camera follows her around in the garden, she's explaining what to do, and I thought, man, you know what, if the worst did come to pass, I have absolutely no idea how to grow my own food, none. I've lived in an apartment since I left school. And I don't live in a house, and I haven't. The only time I lived in a house was when I was in the army, but you're away so much in the army that it didn't really matter. And someone else was mowing the lawn, and I wasn't there growing, squash and peas in the backyard, growing my own vegetables. But it just highlighted in a 10-minute YouTube video that I have absolutely no idea how to grow food. I don't know anything about gardening, and I would be completely stuffed if there was a nuclear EMP strike. But now I've got a little bit more knowledge, tiny bit.
This is why it's useful to have friends.
I've got a really big spear gun in the garage and I'm really good at fishing. So, I can probably trade some fish for some vegetables and I'm a really good swimmer, but
there you go. I mean, in my last house, I had 2 acres of land and part of it was with some planters that I had, some guy really fancy planters. And so I was growing stuff there. But boy, it's work, man. And then, and then you have your tomatoes going up beautifully, and you got everything coming up nicely, and then the rabbits and the deer are having a field day. All you're doing is feeding the wild animals, unless you have everything protected properly.
Yeah, in a 10-minute YouTube video, she showed me all of those things as well, right? How much work it was, and I'm like, I had high eyebrows for a lot of it, thinking I was embarrassed that I didn't know how to do these things, or something that seems so unbelievably simple. Don't plant the seeds directly in the ground; they're not going to grow like that. Plant them in your kitchen first, get it going, and now transfer it. Now you got to look after it. Now cover it up. Now baby it. Now make sure it's in the sun. Make sure you don't overwater it. Don't over fertilize it. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so far out of my depth. I'll just stick to fishing.
Yeah, I know. And these guys. You have enough.
Gold and silver. There you go. That's the tradable commodity right there.
There you go. You'll be king. That and of course I'm sure how many boxes do you have now of tuck underwear? So you're set.
They'll be super tradable later down the track after the nuclear EMP and the death of society.
Yeah, that's right. One thing you can say what you want about the North Koreans. I got to tell you, I've never seen such good paper mache missiles ever.
Remember the wooden missiles that they had on parade?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
So
all the American analysts are like, the military guys coming to work, oh man, these North Koreans, that's scary stuff, hey? And it's like, no man, zoom in. The missile's made of wood.
Like with Putin's recent May Day parade, where he had
the tank from the 1930s coming around the corner, blowing all the diesel smoke coming out.
Some lone little tank going down. You should have just canceled the parade, man.
I know, right? It's like embarrassing.
That was embarrassing. But every time they do these May Day parades, I think, come on, they cannot possibly pull out everything they have and show it to the world. I mean, that cannot. What are they're going to drive it in from Vladivostok for the parade, and then ship it back, and then drive it back to Vladivostok? I mean, come on.
That's pretty crazy.
They've got to have a warehouse of props, right? That they pull out every year, right? Am I right?
Well, that's just in the local area, right? From Moscow to St. Petersburg. They're not very far away from each other. They're pulling them all in. But the May Day parades go on elsewhere in Russia as well. That's just never televised, because they were like, where are all your big T-14 Armata tanks and the T-90s? Where are they? And they actually, mainstream media didn't show it to you, but the unspoken truth is it was out there. And, I'm part of like several Russian Telegram channels, and I saw heaps of them. And there was plenty of those tanks still available to go onto the battlefield in Ukraine. So it is what it is. But anyway, Ed, let's wrap up today's show, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, if you've joined us here on The Unspoken Truth in the live show, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with Ed and I. Don't forget to come on over to Spotify and follow the podcast. We're getting quite a few downloads every day over there. Lots of people seem to like the audio version. On Spotify, there's video too, but it pulls through into Apple as the audio version, and all the other podcast platforms as the audio as well. We're over on Telegram. You can find the link down below in the description, and also on Twitter. And if you've got any questions or comments for us, please leave it down below in the comments section. That'd be awesome. We'd go back to you there. If you've got a question, put the word question in front of that, and then write your question, and the audience will then go back and answer your questions, and we'll help do that as well. And if you see something that's a little bit strange or speculative, don't be a troll. Try and help people out. Be nice. No need to be a troll. If you haven't got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Remember that advice your old man gave you when you were a kid. It still stands a test of time today. So if you want to follow along with us, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. Ed, have you got any final comments before we close out the show today, mate?
Just a special shout out to my members in the Hey Ed WhatsApp group. And if you think you would like to join the Hey Ed WhatsApp group, just go over to my YouTube channel called Hey Ed and shoot me an email. My email information will be in the description box.
Yeah, perfect. And the link to Ed's channel is right down below as well. You can see that in the description. That's already there. All right, let's get out of here, Ed. Bye, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. See you now.